Hi, Facebook. Hi, YouTube. I'm just going to wait for you guys to tune in. Sorry, I'm late. I had a consultation that ran super late. But here I am. I have a good topic for you guys today. Um, Good morning, Hair Braider. Good morning, Kema. Grand Rising Aboriginal Ascendants. Hair Braiders. Awesome. Let me introduce myself real quick because I know I don't have much time today. My name is Aisha Chidole. I'm an immigration attorney and I represent clients all over the U.S. with their immigration cases. We specialize in different areas, humanitarian-based VAWA cases, T visas, marriage, K visas, conditional removals, naturalization, etc. So today I want to, if you want to schedule a consult, call 407-995-6567. You can also send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. Thank God, Leroy. I am live on Instagram. Join me on Instagram. Am I not live on Instagram? I'm live on Instagram. People are responding to me here. You probably just have to go back there if you want to see me on Instagram. So today I have a really good topic for you guys. I want to talk about the evidence needed to win your VAWA case. For a winning VAWA case, let me put it this way. Somebody's asking, do you practice in the United States? Obviously, yes, I am in the United States. We've got an office here in Atlanta, another one in Florida. Someone says you always try your best to reply everyone's questions. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, please let them know. You guys, I get so many comments, so many DMs, so many messages, so many questions online. So sometimes, I can get to all the answers and, they go really fast. So it's like what I see that I respond to. But feel free to type your questions. But before I start answering the questions, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, VAWA, first of all, what VAWA is, and, critical pieces of evidence that could really strengthen your case to win. So for VAWA, a few people this week actually asked what VAWA was, which, anyway. So the acronym VAWA basically stands for Violence Against Women's Act. A lot of people get confused because the name has women in it, so they think it's for women only. VAWA is not only for women. It is also for men. It is also for children. It is also for parents. So if you are in an abusive relationship with your spouse who's a green card holder or a U.S. citizen, if you meet all the other requirements that I'm going to sort of go through, you are eligible to apply for VAWA. And with VAWA, you can get your 10-year green card right off the bat as opposed to a 2-year and become eligible for citizenship 3 years later. The same applies to children. If your parent, step parent, that your parent married before you turned 18 is abusive to you, was abusive to you, you're eligible to apply for VAWA, as long as you're U.S. citizens or green card holders. The only difference here with parents is for parents, if you have a child that is abusive to you, that child has to be over 21 and that child has to be a U.S. citizen. So again, we can use the word abusive, we can use the word extremely cruel, sometimes when I use the word abusive, I want to make sure that people are not confused and think that abuse is only someone slapping you or punching you or doing something physically violent to you. Because abuse can be very much psychological and emotional and verbal and financial, and sexually, and the abuse of the legal system. So there are many things that would be considered as abuse, but what we like to do is we like to look at it in its totality, right? To see, is this case strong enough, to, basically pass, and get that approval. So from a winning evidence standpoint, the first thing, since we do, since there are more spousal cases than not, I will talk more about the spousal cases. Thank you so much, ZZ87. I really appreciate your comment. So with spouse, let's talk about that, and, maybe I'll dabble into the children as well and the, parents, what some of the evidence they can submit. So the first things first, when you're alleging that your spouse is being extremely cruel to you, first things first that you have to prove is that you entered into that marriage legally. Okay. So, and forgive me if I'm looking left and right because I've got different screens. So I'm trying to give everybody attention. How do you prove that you've been legally married? One, proof of your actual marriage certificate. So sometimes some people will have a marriage license that they've picked up from the courthouse, but it was not actually signed, or they didn't even know that it wasn't signed. So they might not even be legally married, right? So, proof of that marriage. And then here are the other things that cover proof of marriage, right? The other thing that covers proof of marriage is that if you were previously married, that you have an authentic divorce before you enter that new marriage. The key word being authentic. You cannot go fake a divorce. You have to have an authentic divorce to be able to be free to marry somebody in the US, because in the United States, they do not practice polygamy, bigamy, polyandrous, or is it polyamory, or whatever it is, all those things. It's a monogamous marriage in the United States. Okay? If your previous spouse passed away, you want to make sure that you have the death decree that lists that spouse was married and that you were their spouse, as opposed to a death decree that says your spouse was single, but you're saying that was your spouse, right? Unless, you're just recently divorced. When that happened, then you'll be found on the basis of divorce. Okay? No, wait, I'm sorry. No, scratch what I just said, because I'm talking about your ex-spouse, not your current spouse. So basically, you have to have proof that before you entered this new marriage, you had finished and terminated everything with the other marriage. So that is the first thing to prove marriage. Then you have to prove that your spouse is a U.S. citizen or a green card holder. For a lot of abusers, part of the power dynamics of abuse is control. So for a lot of people who are abused, they might not have that documentation. If you don't have that documentation, we can help you get that from USCIS. Usually we'll ask for some critical information that helps us to give USCIS enough identifying information to pull the person's citizenship. Yes, Beto says the legal system is complex. It is very complex. I had a conversation with somebody the other day that was telling someone else, just go on the USCIS website, just fill out the form and send it. And I was like, it's information like that gets people in so much trouble that by the time they come to us, what has happened is so bad that it's difficult to fix. My take for people is this: no matter what you decide to do, you should always consult with a lawyer about something as important as your immigration status, because immigration in another country is probably one of the most important aspects of your lives if you're immigrating, because that is what allows you to work legally, to support yourself, to support your family. So if it's that important to you, at least consult with somebody and decide what you want to do thereafter. Okay? Going back, the second thing is you have to prove that this marriage that you entered into is not just a marriage that you just signed a marriage license and that's it for immigration purposes. You have to show good faith marriage. So what is good faith marriage? This confuses people a lot. Good faith marriage is not just that you have a marriage certificate. It is that you can show credible evidence that you and your spouse intended to live your life together, and just life happened and your spouse became abusive. How do you show good faith marriage? One of the first things is in your declaration. Your declaration is your personal statement that you make and that's submitted to USCIS. A good personal statement should have a background information about how you and your spouse met, how you fell in love, how you intended to spend your life together, what you guys did together when you were dating, things that basically show that you were doing life together, right? That is the very bare minimum, right? Other things that you can use to support that. If you have affidavits from friends, family who know you guys, pictures from your wedding, if you had an elaborate wedding. See, the key word here, I use elaborate wedding. When people send me pictures, maybe, let's say they had a court marriage. No real effort to it. Husband is wearing a baseball cap or t-shirt, jeans. Wife is wearing, I don't know, like something crazy. Those to me, don't. Those to me, even though it might be a legitimate marriage and it might have been a spur of the moment thing or you eloped, if you have to remember, guys, and I know some people take this personal when I say this because they'll say, well, USCIS can tell us how we should take, what we should wear, or how we should carry ourselves. Yes, but what you have to remember is that USCIS uses a standard that is not fair. I agree it's not fair, but this is the standard. And my job as an attorney is to make sure that my clients have an easier time getting through that hurdle. It's not fair because maybe if there was no immigration issue involved, this is how you really live your lives. But USCIS doesn't know you personally. So because they don't know you personally, they're looking for key and clear indicators that this is a good faith marriage. A good faith marriage, if you're submitting your wedding photos, they want to see a wedding gown or a niqab if you're doing that, or guests at your wedding, or where did you guys go after that, and stuff like that. If you don't necessarily have that, I wouldn't say that your wedding photos are a strong contributor to your application. So sometimes we have to make the executive decision to remove wedding photos if they just look really sloppy and like no effort was put in, or whatever the case may be. Now, if you don't have wedding photos, that's fine. That does not mean your case is going to get denied. Then add supporting photos. I believe strongly in adding supporting photos more so than wedding photos, unless, like I said, your wedding was a big wedding with lots of guests, money was spent. Just always think about it that way. If it looks like money was invested in this wedding, we put ourselves out to the world that we're married, and so we invited all these people, it's more likely true than not that this is a legitimate marriage. But outside of weddings, you want to show pictures over the course of your life together. When I say pictures over the course of your lives together, do not send 20 pictures of you guys in just different outfits, in your bedroom, in the kitchen, in the living room, or whatever it is. They're looking to see pictures that you do life together. Do you guys go on date nights? Do you guys hang out with friends? How did you spend the holidays? Did you go to a theme park? Did you travel to another state? So pictures with family members and things like that is what they want to see. Hi, Andrea. And for those of you who need a psychological evaluation and you're out in Florida, Andrea Roa is very good and she can help you guys with your psychological evaluation. You can DM us for her contact. So pictures like that, those are good to show. And then outside of pictures, proof of you guys cohabitating also is like a double evidence, because cohabitation also shows good faith marriage. Cohabitation means that you lived with your spouse. You don't have to be living with your spouse at the time of submission, but you have to show that you've lived with your spouse. And what are some evidence that you can use to support you? Do you have neighbors who know you guys? One thing I encourage people to do is get to know your neighbors, so that if you have a controlling spouse who maybe does not want to put your name on utility bills, does not want to put your name on anything because that's part of their narcissism or control technique, have a neighbor that can vouch for you, that knows that you live there. And so that if it comes to that, they can write you a letter confirming that you do live there, and stuff like that. So if you don't have, if you never, of course, if you have bank statements with your spouse, those are really good evidence, because it's showing, again, that you're commingling your funds and you're doing it together. I know not everybody is going to have an ITIN or a Social Security to file taxes with their spouse, or that their spouse allows them to file taxes. But if you're one of those who have that, it's good evidence to submit, to show, again, good faith marriage and that you guys intended to have a life together. Again, if you have a house together, whether it's leased, whether it's rented, those are good evidence to send. Get to know your landlord. Those are good evidence to send to prove cohabitation. If you have children, send it. If one of the parents are listed as emergency contact in the children's school stuff, send that. Same thing at workplace, emergency contact, health insurance, car insurance. So I'm just listing out different things that you can use. And when you're sending bills, it's always good to send more than one monthly statement. So like if you have life insurance, for example, life insurance, I consider that to be a weak evidence just because of the amount that is required, because most times when immigrants submit life insurance, it's usually something where the payment's like $20, and it's like anybody can do that, whatever the case may be. But if you're going to use that, make sure you're showing monthly payments of that. Same thing with any like insurance or bill. Show a few months of payment. Same thing with your bank statement, a few months. Yes, I will save the live, Norma. So show that. And then of course, proving abuse. Like I started this, live with. Abuse is so many things. You can prove abuse based on how strong, one, your personal statement declaration is. Sometimes I know that with immigrants, that are dealing with stuff like that, they're there's just so much going in your head, and sometimes they have a hard time articulating, and so what's going on. One of the things I recommend before you consult with a lawyer, or consult with me, if you're consulting me, try to think about everything, because usually there's something that leads you to make that call because you feel this is something you're experiencing, right? Something touches you, and whatever it is that you see in the person's life that says, this is what I'm experiencing. So think about all the things that have happened to you. Try to think about them. Don't say, oh, my spouse has been verbally abusive to me, or my spouse has been emotionally abusive to me. But what does that look like? Because that's just a word. So you really want to delve deeper into, well, what exactly are they doing that's verbally abusive to you? What are they doing that's emotionally abusive to you? How can we show that? What example do you have? Like I always tell my clients, for everything that I ask you and you say yes to, I need an example. The more examples we give, the better it is for an officer to be able to look at the application as a whole and say, okay, this person is going through trauma. This is horrible. This is horrible. But if all in mind is my spouse is verbally abusive, he makes me stressed out, he didn't want to help me file my papers, that's not going to be successful. Okay. The things that get most people is they're proving, one, they were that they cohabitated. Again, I want to go back to this. You have to show that you lived with your spouse. This is not a negotiable requirement. Cohabitation. Granted, there's no, USCIS has not really given us how long somebody has to have lived with a person, but they have to show that they at some point stayed together as though they were going to be living together in that space. Okay, so it is really important that you're able to show that. That's something that gets people. Another thing that gets people is divorce, your previous marriages. If you've been married before, please do a proper divorce. Do a proper divorce. Do a proper divorce. I can't say this enough. I'm specifically speaking to Nigerians here because, like, literally, you guys, like, when I consult with a Nigerian and they tell me they're divorced, the first thing I ask is, where did you get a divorce? This is going to be a problem if you don't have a proper divorce. Guys, do a proper divorce. I know a lot of times, you pay people and say, oh, go help me do this stuff, and you just assume that they're doing the right thing. But again, in Nigeria, in order for you to be properly divorced, if you have a registry wedding, you must have an attorney representing you. If an attorney is not representing you, you can be rest assured that that divorce is most likely 100% not valid. That is what I mean by proper divorce, Karina. What I mean is that some people will not be really divorced. They will not be really divorced. They will just put together paperwork and then just go marry somebody else. And but again, in this country, and that might fly in another country where it doesn't matter how many wives you have. Like Nigeria is one of those countries. You don't have to do a proper divorce to marry somebody else in Nigeria. But in order to marry somebody in the US and make immigration benefits available to you, you have to have a proper divorce. That's what I mean by that. And then, of course, if you have police reports, those are good evidence to send. It is not a requirement. I saw somebody ask that question. It is not a requirement to have a police report, because there are many forms of abuse that would not include a police report. However, if you have a police report, certainly submit it, because it is helpful to prove not only abuser, it is also helpful to show good faith marriage, and it can also be helpful to show cohabitation. Okay? If you have lots of interactions where we can easily verify that that is that person's phone number via text, via WhatsApp, via social media, via whatever, submit those as well. If you live in a one state consent, one person consent state where you have the ability to record abusive behavior that's happening, you can transcribe that. But again, you have to be in a state that allows that, where only one person has to be okay with that. So meaning you, the person recording it. If you have all those things, you have a very strong, let me not forget. And then you must send evidence of good moral character for the last 3 years. So if you're applying for VAWA and maybe you've not been in the country for 3 years, and you came here and you applied like 5 months after you were here, usually getting something from where your home country is would be requested or will be helpful to your case to show good moral character, whether it's a police clearance, whether it's an FBI report. And if you have any arrests of any kind, it is important that you don't lie to your attorney. A lot of times, I don't know why people lie, or maybe it's fear of judgment or whatever it is. Like I always tell people in consults, there's absolutely nothing that you can tell me that is shocking to me, because there's nothing we've not heard. My job is to figure out, based on everything that you've told me, what options do you have? If you have an option, I will tell you what your option is. If it's not, then I will tell you candidly. But it's better to know than to lie and weave yourself into a web of lies that will basically end up hurting you in the long run. So that's that. I mean, I know this topic is so vast that I can't get everything done in the time that I need. And I can see like my time is up. I can probably take like one question. There's just so much, so maybe I'll just kind of like do a series on this and like just sort of like tackle each, just because there's just so much to it. But this is the bare minimum, that you need. And hopefully it's helpful for you guys. So what I'm gonna take one question. If you continue in a relationship with your husband and got pregnant, will that be a problem with your VAWA petition? So I'm not sure who you got pregnant for, but let's just assume you got pregnant for your abusive spouse. No, that is not going to be a problem from your VAWA application. Many people that are in abusive relationships and are filing VAWA live with their spouses because they cannot get out. They cannot get out, or they don't have the courage to get out because they don't have a work permit, but it doesn't mean that, they're not having intimate relationships, or their spouses are not forcing them to have intimate relationships. Many spouses get suffer from marital rape where they're forced, or it's like, if you don't want to do this with me, then get out of this house. And they're left homeless. They have nowhere to go. And for a lot of people, they will rather stay in an abusive marriage than go to a homeless shelter, so it depends. But so I hope that answers your question. Okay, I can take one more question. I'm going to take a question on VAWA. Oh, and one thing to mention to you guys in terms of having a winning VAWA case, if you file for VAWA and you when you've divorced your spouse or in the process of waiting for VAWA, you divorce your spouse, please do not get remarried until they make a decision on your case. If you remarry, they will say you've abandoned your application, and so you will not be able to get that green card through VAWA. Someone says it's 1 month after marriage too short to file a green card application. You can file a green card application anytime you want. Like, there's no timeline. All you'd have to do is follow what I talked about in Good Faith Marriage. I did a TikTok post yesterday that I talked about, good faith marriage for marriage-based cases. Just show that your marriage is legit. That's it. I really want to continue this topic. I see so many questions. Unfortunately, Instagram will not save them. I can see the ones on Facebook and YouTube will probably be saved, so I will not be able to get them answered. But join me on my next live. I'll kind of do like a part 2 of this, and we'll delve in deeper. But if you want to schedule a consult, call the office 407-995-6567 or WhatsApp 404-333-8751. I know I saw someone in a comment that asked, can they schedule a consult with me today? Unfortunately, I'm booked all day. But call the office and they will let you know what the next available appointment is, whether it's with me or whether it's with one of our wonderful associate attorneys who are badass, as well. And any of us can consult with you and give you the right legal advice. All right, guys, hope you have a great day and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.